Hello, everyone. Good morning and a warm welcome to Wow Wednesday. Happy to see many of you joining live. Hope you're all enjoying Wow Wednesdays. And here is a very good news for you all. We diet experts are going to be live on Wow Wednesdays from this month. So we will be joining the live with very interesting videos. So now let me introduce myself. I am Sanjana, diet expert from Diet Science Department, and I have done my master's in nutrition and dietetics, and I have been into this field for more than 6 years now. So now quickly move on to today's topic. So today I'm going to discuss about glycemic index and glycemic load. So every person with diabetes is basically doubted whether if we can include white rice, why are we asked to avoid white rice, and why not banana and potatoes? So here I'm today to clear all your doubts related to this. And the participants of FFD are basically asked to go low on GI foods initially. So what exactly is this GI? So GI is nothing but the glycemic index. So glycemic index is measure of how quickly a carbohydrate in a particular food is being converted into glucose or energy. So as you all know that every food contains carbohydrates, but then the glycemic index of each food is different. So the foods are basically categorized into low GI, medium GI, and high GI. So the foods which have a rating between 0 to 55 are considered low GI foods, whereas 56 to 69 are considered medium GI, and the foods which have GI of 70 and above are considered as high GI foods. So what exactly are these low, medium, and high GI foods? So this low GI foods, they are basically, they get digested slowly and absorbed slowly. Hence, they doesn't release the sugars immediately into the bloodstream. So these are basically called diabetic friendly because they help control your sugars. They also reduce the insulin resistance. And apart from this, they also help you reduce your cholesterol levels. And if a person is overweight or obese, it also helps in controlling your weight. So these are the benefits of low GI foods. As I said, they get digested slowly and they absorb slowly. So they doesn't release the sugars immediately. Whereas high GI foods, they get absorbed easily, they get digested easily, and they raise the sugars rapidly. So these are basically not diabetic friendly, and these high GI foods increase our hunger. So a person can tend to eat more if he is on high GI foods, leading to high sugars, and at the same time, the person may start gaining weight too. So I'll just show you graph of how these high GI and low GI food affects on your sugar levels. So this is the graph on how they exactly affect. So if you can see here, high GI foods when taken, they rapidly raise the sugars because they're digested and absorbed easily, quickly, and then they raises the sugar at a stretch. Whereas the green one, which is a low GI food, this takes some time. They get digested slowly and absorbed slowly, and hence there is just gradual rise in blood sugars, and then they'll settle down. So we have to try including more of low GI foods rather than high GI foods in order to control your sugar levels better. And now we will quickly move on to what foods are categorized under each of this glycemic index. So as I said, there are low glycemic index, medium, and high. So the foods that fall under low GI are all the whole grains, especially barley, oats, millets, and quinoa. So these are the basic grains which has low GI. And among fruits, we have apple, guava, pear, peach, berries, kiwi, fruits which fall under low GI. And moving to dals and legumes, all the dals and legumes are basically low in their GI. So they're all safe to be used. And among vegetables, all the vegetables except rooted vegetables are all low in GI and they're diabetic friendly. So these are about the low GI foods. Now moving to the medium GI foods. So foods like brown rice, whole wheat are considered moderate GI foods. And among fruits, raw banana, that is the green banana or plantain, which we say is considered as medium GI food. And apart from this, fruits like papaya is a medium GI fruit. Now moving to high GI. So these are the foods which spike the sugars instantly. So white rice and all the refined flours like maida and ravas are included into high GI foods. And apart from this refined, all the processed and bakery foods are also considered high GI. So when I say processed, it includes pastas or noodles and the bakery foods like cookies and biscuits and all the junk food like burgers, pizzas. These are all considered high GI because they are basically made out of maida, which is refined flour, and that can spike your sugars instantly. And apart from this, we also have all the sugars considered high GI and the sweetened beverages, like it can be either fruit juices and even carbonated beverages, which are high in glycemic index. And apart from this, the fruits which are high in GI are ripe banana, and we have all the dry fruits. So this doesn't include almonds or walnuts. Those are the nuts. Whereas dry fruits include dates, figs, raisins, which are high in GI. And all the rooted vegetables, all the underground vegetables are all high in their glycemic index. So that's the reason we usually ask a diabetic person to avoid white rice, rooted vegetables, banana, and all these high GI containing foods. And the most common question asked by most of the participants to us is, so can we replace sugar with jaggery or honey? So it's 100% no, because all the three contain same amount of sugar. So sugar, jaggery, honey all contain same amount of sugar, and the GI of all the three is high. So it is safe not to use sugar, jaggery, and honey too if you are a person with diabetes. So this is about the low, medium, and high GI foods which are categorized. So now I'll explain you in detail with few examples which will be easy for you to understand. So we will take a common example of our breakfast which we usually eat on daily basis. So let's take idli and medu vada. So as you all know that idli is made up of either white rice or rava, which is refined, whereas medu vada is made up of dal. So if you memorize into which category they fall into, so rava or white rice is considered high GI because they have no fiber at all into them. Whereas dal, which has been used to make medu vada, is low in GI. So the foods, as we have discussed, which are low in GI, so idli gets digested easily, absorbed easily, and raises the sugars immediately. Whereas medu vada, which is made out of dal, as the GI of dals is low, that will not spike your sugars immediately because that gets digested and absorbed slowly. So the same way you can compare with other breakfast recipes too, like you can compare with white rice dosa, and you can compare it with moong dal dosa. So that is nothing but pesara too. So white rice can spike your sugars instantly because it is low in GI, whereas moong dosa, as the dal has low GI, that doesn't spike your sugars immediately. So you can compare between the breakfast items which you are including on regular basis and choose healthy options. And now we will quickly move on to the next example. I'll explain you on how exactly it works. So do you all know what exactly happens when you take a glass of Glucon-D water? Yes. So you get instant stamina because the sugars or glucose is instantly released into your bloodstream. So this will cause spike in sugars because the GI of glucose D is high. Whereas if you take green leafy vegetables, the sugars will not be raised immediately because sugars are not released, the glucose is not released into the bloodstream instantly. So green leafies are considered low GI, whereas glucose D has high GI. So this is the difference between low GI and high GI foods. And as these glucose D is basically taken in liquid form, and it is purely sugar, so it doesn't contain any fiber into them, so that instantly spikes your sugars. Whereas green leafies, they contain good amount of fiber into them, which will help you control your sugars better. So now we will move on to another example, which is very similar. And this is the most common question which people keep asking us to. So it's regarding like, why can't a diabetic person include fruit juices? Though we are not adding sugar into that, why can't we prefer fruit juices over whole fruit? So what we exactly do with fruit juice, so we strain the fruit juice, which removes the fiber completely from that. And this will raise the GI of fruit juice. And at the same time, it doesn't contain fiber at all, and it can immediately spike your sugars. If you take whole fruit, it contains good amount of fiber into that, and we are not increasing the GI of the fruit. It has good fiber, and it will help you control the sugars, and you need to chew it too. So in general, to conclude, the foods which are to be chewed more has low GI, and the foods which are to be less chewed are basically high in GI because they lack fiber. So these are few examples with which you can easily understand on how to choose your foods well, and how to choose your low calorie, what all falls under low and high calorie. So apart from fiber, we have few more factors which also affects the glycemic index. So apart from fiber, the protein and fat also plays a main role in controlling your glycemic index. So what exactly does this protein and fat does? So this protein and fat, they slows the rate of digestion and stomach emptying. Hence, the sugars will not be raised rapidly. So for example, if you take white rice, only white rice, that can release the sugars immediately into the bloodstream, digesting very quickly. So when you combine this white rice with some dal and some tadka, that is seasoning, so we are basically adding protein and fat along with the grain. So this can reduce the digestion rate and emptying of the stomach, thereby not increasing your sugars at a stretch. So this is one of the important factor apart from fiber, which also affects the glycemic index. And apart from this, cooking will also affect the glycemic index. So if you're choosing a very quick or raw methods of cooking, that has low GI. So whereas the long process cookings usually has high GI into them. So if I say raw or slow cooking process, you can prefer like roasted chana, sprouts, or you can include whole fruit, and food preparations, quicker methods include roti. So this doesn't take so much of time to cook or prepare, and they're basically raw. So they contain good amount of fiber, and the slower cooking process has low GI. So the roasting of roti, that doesn't take so much of time. Whereas if you compare the long cooking processes like boiling of rice and cooking khichdi and all, this takes some time. So this will definitely increase the GI of that particular food. So now moving to the next factor. So it is processing of foods. So the more the food is being processed, the higher can be GI, that is glycemic index. So if you take the same example of fruit and fruit juice, so as I said, whole fruit contains low GI. Whereas if you're processing it, that means you're extracting the juice of it and removing the fiber, the GI of the fruit juice gets increased. So the more the processing, the more is the GI. And if you compare between a whole grain bread and a white bread, so as I said, whole grains include good amount of fiber, which will not spike your sugars, and they are low in GI. Whereas the white breads, which are basically made out of maida, are high in GI, and that can spike your sugars. So the next factor which affects the glycemic index is the ripeness and the storage time. So the more the fruits and vegetables are ripened, the more will be the GI. So if you remember, as I said, a raw banana is a medium GI, whereas the ripe banana is high GI. So the more the fruit or vegetable is ripened, the GI starts increasing. And apart from this, there are few other factors also which affects these glycemic index. The important thing, so that is nothing but individual differences in glucose and glycemic response. So what exactly happens is every person is different. So we cannot compare one with the other because the digestion of the carbohydrates differs from person to person, and the secretion of insulin also differs from person to person. So like, for example, brown rice can suit for many, but then for few, brown rice can also spike the sugars because their body might be emptying it earlier, I mean digesting, and then releasing the sugars easily. For few, the digestion can be a little slow, and that might be not spiking their sugars. So it differs from person to person and on how each grain is acting upon their body. So this is all about the glycemic index. So as we have discussed about what exactly is glycemic index and what are the different categories of glycemic index and what categories of foods fall under each of these and the factors affecting glycemic index. Now we will quickly move on to glycemic load. So what exactly is glycemic load? So glycemic load is nothing but it is measure of rise in sugars, specifically depending on the quality and quantity of carbohydrates you are taking in. So when I say the quality and quantity of carbohydrates, we have two types of carbohydrates. So we have simple carbohydrates and we have complex carbohydrates. So when I say simple carbohydrates, these are basically lacking in fiber. That doesn't contain fiber at all into them. And this can definitely spike the sugars of a diabetic person. So the examples of simple carbohydrates includes the regular sugars, jams, jellies, white rice, and the refined flours. Whereas complex carbohydrates, they have good amount of fiber into them, and they help control your sugars well as they're low in GI too. So the whole grains are all included into the complex carbohydrates. So you can take a simple example of wheat-based roti and maida roti. So as wheat-based roti is complex and it has good amount of fiber that controls your sugars well, whereas maida, which is refined, doesn't contain sugar, doesn't contain fiber at all into them, which will easily spike up your sugars. So you have to choose your carbohydrates wisely in order to control your sugars. And you need not calculate this glycemic load every time. So just choose your carbohydrates wisely rather than calculating the glycemic load every time. So you can consider glycemic index, which will help you control your sugars well. So now we will move on to few tips on how to choose a healthier meal. So just try including at least one low GI food for each meal. So as we already know that low GI food helps control your sugars, it reduces the insulin resistance, and it helps control your cholesterol levels and your body weight too. So just try preferring at least one low GI food into every meal of yours. And try limiting on refined, processed, and bakery foods, as we all know that they lack in fiber and they doesn't contain healthy nutrients too. So they are low in nutrients, and at the same time the GI of them is high, which can definitely spike your sugars. So you can prefer whole grains rather than going with this refined, processed or bakery foods, and include a good amount of fresh fruits and vegetables into your diet, as most of the vegetables except the rooted vegetables are considered low GI and they have good amount of fiber. So that will help you control your sugars, at the same time weight. So try including fresh fruits and vegetables into your diet. And when you're choosing a high GI food, for suppose, as I said, only rice, so just try combining it with some low GI food too. So when a high GI food is combined with a low GI food, the GI, the glycemic index of the meal remains medium, not spiking the sugars too much. So you can try adding rice with some vegetables and dals, which will help you control your sugars better rather than only including rice or grain. So this way you can balance your meal, making your GI medium, because as we have discussed that high GI foods, it can tend to increase your hunger, and we eat more when we're eating high GI foods. So that will spike your sugars, and at the same time that will lead to weight gain too. So you can prefer more of low GI foods over high GI foods in order to control your sugars well, and also in order to maintain your weight well. So this is all about today's session. Hope you're all clear with what exactly is glycemic index and glycemic load, and hope it's informative and you use it for preferring your foods, choosing your foods in a healthy way. So see you all soon with another interesting video. Good day, and stay healthy and stay safe. Bye-bye.